Good morning. So, as you can see, I am in my garage again. Now, I don't know if you can hear, but it's really rather wet outside. It keeps doing this, which is a right pain. So, this is my weekend. I'm supposed to be having fun out in the garden, doing what I want. But I'm stuck in the house, so I thought I'd have a play in the garage instead. Now, I'm going to be trying to build a birdhouse. So, I actually did one last weekend when it was raining. And it looks okay, but I think I can do better. So it's all going to be recycled materials, scraps that I have laying around. So I've got an old shelf down there, an old shelf down there, and then it's a couple of old slates that I took off the roof that I'm going to be using for the roof there. But yeah, I've started marking this board up, but I'm looking at this end and it's all complicated and it's like, we'd start again. So I'm going to start on this end and I'll show you how I mark this up. Now you'll see I've already drawn a line across here. The end of this, as you can see, it's got splits in it, it's got staining, it's water damaged. So I'm going to cut that off straight there, and we'll work from that line up. So I measured this board, it's 90 centimetres long. So from that line to there is 80 centimetres. That was the halfway mark there, but I'll double check that from that line up. So yeah, let's try and get you on some sort of stand where you can see what's going on, and let's get this marked up. So hopefully you got a decent view from there. So we'll start by going from the bottom there up 40 centimetres. This doesn't have to be exact, but it's useful. So yeah, that's the line I'm working from. That's going to be the top. So we start by dividing this board in half. So it's 30.5 centimetres. So that is 15.25, which is there. I've already marked up the top there. So that is the board divided into two. You then want to take the diagonal across there and across there. Now you only really need to mark up one side of this, because what you can do is you can cut out one side, take what you cut off, put it on the other and use it as a stencil. And then once you've got those two as a mirror image, you can take that piece that you've cut, put it down there and draw around it again to cut that piece. Then they'll all be matching. But now I'll just mark one side for this. So you then want to take one of your sides of your triangle there and go halfway, which is there. So that is a halfway point. So then you've got the complicated bit. You then want to make a nice smooth curve going out on the bottom half and in on the top half. Now what I did on the other one is I actually used a bucket and drew around the bucket, but I think that was a little bit too sharp a radius on that, which means the slates didn't sit quite so flat. So basically you need to make a compass. You can do that in various ways. One way is to use a string line. I find they're a little bit too flexible. The other way is to use a block of wood and just drill holes along it. I found out that a file is actually quite a useful length. So for this you just want to line it up with the two ends there. Just keep moving your central point until you're making a nice arc across. We'll get there eventually. There we go. And then we can just draw around that. So that's from the halfway point there, going down, and that lines up nice and straight at the bottom there. And then the other one's a little bit more complicated because it overhangs the board, but it's the same again. There we go. Oops. Right. So there we go. Now if I get a marker pen, you'll be able to see this easier. So we've got a nice line now that goes from there down that way and back over there. So that is the line we want to cut. So if I get a jigsaw out, and we'll cut that out. Right, so if you lined it up properly, you should have two matching pieces now. So the next thing to work on is windows and doors. So I've drawn it out on that one just so I knew what I was doing, but I'm going to do it again on this one. You only need to cut one of these with windows and doors. Obviously the other one is going to be the back. So the first one is the window at the top, which is nice and easy. When you are marking up your triangle and you found your halfway point, you just draw a straight line across on your halfway point. That will be your round window up there where that halfway point and that halfway point meet. So the next one is your doors and windows at the bottom. So you want to take this distance here and find halfway of that. So that is 15 centimetres across there, so 7.5 centimetres is there. Now I want my doorway to be 8 centimetres wide. So we'll go 4 centimetres either way off of that line, and I want it to be 10 centimetres high. So we'll put a line there, and we will use a square to get the centre of the door there. So that's the height of the door, that's the centre of the door, that's either side. Now you want to have a nice curve on that that matches the curve on that. Now you could try using the compass again, but you've got enough cut here with a perfect curve already cut into it. So you can just draw around that. Line that up there. And there we go, that is one doorway. In fact, I'll mark that with marker pen so it's easier to see. So we have our round window up here, and we have our doorway down here. There we go. Now next one is the window. Now you mark that up exactly the same as the door first of all. So halfway there, 4 is there, 8 is there, 10 is there. That's that. That's that. And that's that. So now that looks exactly the same as the doorway, and you simply just measure up however high you think a windowsill would look right and draw a straight line across there. So now we have our window here that matches our door nicely. There we go. So now it's just a case of cutting these out. So the doorway there is easy, you can just cut it up from the bottom with the jigsaw. The window there is a little bit more difficult, just drill a big hole to start with, and you can carry on with the jigsaw. Circular window, if you've got the right tools, it's easy, just use a drill bit. So this I'm using 38mm. Tell the drill's getting old. Okay, the next thing to do is to tidy up these edges to give them a bit of a chamfer on them. Now you can do that all, I've got a rasp here, you can do that all by hand, but if you've got one, then I'll choose a router. Now obviously the way the router works, that is an angled bit there with a bearing there, so that bearing runs across the inside, so it doesn't allow you to cut too far into the wood, but that bearing will limit how far up to the top here you can get, so you will still have to do the corners with a file. So yeah, let's get that done. Yeah, this is going to take a while. Right, well that took longer than I would have liked. So I found the best way to do it was actually I used a knife to carve into the corner, and then I used a triangular file just to get that nice neat edge in the corner there. But yeah, so that looks good. So we have got a back wall, we have got a front wall. Next thing to do is a floor. So there's a board there. So I'm going to divide this up into 3 sections inside, because basically you're making 3 bird boxes in one. So there's going to be a wall going down like that to divide the top section off, and there'll be another one down the middle there to divide the other 2 bits into 2. So the internal of a bird box, you don't want to be too big. If it's too big, they spend all their time bringing material in and wearing themselves out. If it's too small, then obviously the birds don't fit. So the internal dimensions, you want to be about 15 centimetres. So what I have done is I have measured 20 centimetres on the board here and put a mark, and then I'm going to have the back wall there, the front wall there, and that's going to make an internal depth of 20 centimetres minus the 2 boards there. So I actually end up with 16 centimetres, which I think I can go with. So if I divide that off as a nice straight line there, so that is where my front wall is going to go to. So I then want to make some sort of veranda bit like I did on the last one. Just give somewhere for the birds to land. Now you could just cut that straight off square, but I think it looks nicer with a curve. Again, I'm going to use the same curve that I did for the top there. So the doorway is on this side, so I want that side slightly deeper, so we can go like that. Let's actually maybe get it a bit tighter. There we go. And we can just cut that out. Yes, I know how dangerous that was to get my hand that close. Right, and as you can see, I completely missed the mark, but that doesn't matter for this one, because that is just an overhang to look pretty. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like with the walls attached. So next thing is the internal walls. So if I put those bits to one side. Now, when we measured earlier, we know it was 16 centimetres internal depth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down the offcuts here into 16 centimetre blocks, and then we can use those to do the internal walls. So yeah, that shouldn't take much. Do them one at a time. So measure up 16 centimetres. Make sure it's square. Now I can just cheat with the next two. Just sit that on there and hope that I cut it straight. Right, so let's bring the internal wall back in. So basically you want to divide the three sections off. I found the easiest way to do that is to put those two together in a V shape like that, and then use another one to go up like that. So best thing to do, yes, problem is I did that last time and I literally just nailed it through like that and then like there, and it worked. If they will stay in place, let's get you up here. So it went like that. Thing is, there's a little bit of a gap here that I didn't like, so I want to cut that one at a 45-degree angle, which is going to be difficult. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to give it a go. That's better, that's much tighter. Right, let's try and nail this together. Right, that'll do. Okay, so that's those three boards pinned together nicely. Now, unfortunately, I'd prefer it to be down there, so there's actually a decent size area up here. But where this board is curved, and I've cut it at an angle, it's going to have to sit a lot higher. But I think that's still a reasonable size. So I'll now draw a straight line up from those points and just trim them off. Yeah, I should have done this before I nailed them together. Yeah, definitely should have done it before I nailed it together. That's just not fair. Okay, so we've got a lovely Y shape now for why did I do it like that? I know I was trying to save materials. So we want to fix the front on now. So I'm going to start, I know where the bottom is there, so I'll start by fixing that one in place. Now I could simply nail this through from the front, which is what I did on the other one, but to be honest I don't like the nail holes showing. So what I'm going to try and do is nail it from underneath here. The other option is you could try and put wooden dowels in, but to be honest I'm not that good, it's not going to line up. So once this is all constructed, that should be held in place anyway, so this is just a temporary while you're still working on it. Down through there. Try not to drill so far this time. Can get nail punches. I'm just using a nail. Proper nail punch probably do a much better job. And then this one. Right, so that's the front, let's do the back. Again, halfway point is there. Right, there we go. It's not quite in a line. I'll have a quick look at that. Yeah. Right, so I'm going to try and sort out that little bit of wobble that it had. So I've pre-drilled the base, put the screws in, ready for it. I've even countersunk them. So this will pull the wall down flat to the base, and it will also straighten it out, because there is a little bit of a bow in this wood where it's old wood. If I start with the middle one there. That edge is lined up nicely. That edge is lined up nicely. Now for the front wall. There we go. Nice and solid now. Right, I thought I'd just give it a quick coating. So it has got some sort of stain on there already, which I believe is teak stain. But I'm just going to give it a coat with some boiled linseed oil, which again has also got a little bit of a teak stain in there as well. So, say teak. Quite dark, isn't it? Right, that's had a few minutes to soak in, so let's wipe the excess off. I don't know how much that actually did, but there's a few areas it's definitely soaked in, so that's good. Okay, so the next step is to put the roof on. So for my roof I have gone for slate. I've used, well, I've made custom sized slates. Now these were just standard roof slates, reclaimed ones, so you can see the holes where they're far too big to be reused, and a lot of them were broken. And I've used a wet tile saw here, and I started by taking the edge off so you got a nice square edge to it, and then literally just cut it down to the size that you need. And then once I've got enough slates all of the same size, I've used a masonry bit, a very small one, just to drill 2 holes in the top of the slate there. And it wants to be in the top of the slate so that when they overlap like that, the nail heads are going to be covered. So yeah, that'll make more sense once we start getting them on. So yeah, let's clear this mess up and then I'll start putting the slates on. Okay, so that's all clean, so let's start with some nailing. So I'm using large headed nails here. They go nicely through the hole in the slate there, so they shouldn't cause any resistance. Now the first slate I've done is a narrow strip. A lot of people would be tempted just to put that first one straight in place like that without any spacers. You want to just put a little piece at the bottom there to make sure it's at the right angle, so the next one then sits smoothly on top of it. So yeah, so let's start at the bottom and work our way up. Right, so that's the first slates in place. I've now got a block of wood that I can sit there, which is just enough to raise up the next slate, so that there's going to be consistent spacing. It's a little bit more difficult on the next one because you've then got to hold the block up in the air. So if you've got 6 hands, this is really easy, but so this is the next one. So like I say, you want to hold the block level with the bottom of the slate there, and then the next slate sits on top of that block like that. There we go, it's looking good. There we go. Now it's just a case of sorting out this very top bit. Right, now this bit just gets a little bit difficult. So we'll still put that piece on there like that, use the spacer for the wood. Now obviously if I hammer that nail in here, it's going to come out the other side. So what I want to do is I've used the masonry bit that I used to make the holes earlier and just drilled down at an angle there. And I'm hoping that the nails will go down into the wood at that angle. Now I think that works, but I think it dragged the slate down with it, didn't it? Oh well, I think that's going to just have to be how it is. The other thing is trying to not get each nail hit each other. Alright, now just to finish it off on this very top edge here, I've got some of this roof flashing tape. So I've just trimmed the tops there down flush. Now this flashing tape's a little bit old, so it's not as sticky as it used to be, and those slates are wet. So there's one simple solution to solve that, and that is a little bit of heat. So start by drying the slate out. Got protective film underneath here. We'll get rid of that. Now that, in the summer, you might just be able to push that straight on. At this time of year, oh no, that slate had enough heat in it. That's now stuck relatively well. Because I still feel happy just warming it slightly, so that's all it needs. A little bit like that. second layer. That was mainly to build it up so you can't see the nail heads quite so much. And I've got a second layer here. It's about halfway there. And this is what actually makes it watertight. Just trim that to length. There we go, that's finished. There we go, that was a fun one-day build. Got the two of them side by side there. You can see the difference in the shape. This one here, I started the curve higher up and it was a lot steeper. That one is a lot smoother and starts right from the bottom. I don't know which one you think's better. I personally prefer that one. This one looks a lot bigger though, so yeah. But yeah, do leave a like and subscribe. If I get enough likes on this video, I might build a few more. You never know, I could end up with a nice little terrace of birdhouses all the way along. That'd be good. So yeah, right, I shall end this video here, and I shall see you later.